It's said that there are two ways to get to the top of an oak tree. You can climb it or sit on an acorn and wait. You know, in this world, in life, in our community, in our church, achievement is a result of sacrifice. Achievement is a result of initiative, and prayer works much the same way. That's the key point of today's gospel reading, coming out of the 19th chapter of Luke, verses 1 to 10 inclusive. And if you're sitting there this morning saying to yourself, I really question the efficacy of prayer. I don't think prayer works. It definitely doesn't work in my life. Because I pray a lot, but God never seems to answer my prayers. Well, if you feel that way, this gospel reading is for you. Because we're going to find out a strategy we need to employ in order to have prayer effectively work in our lives. Now, it turns out to be in most gospel readings, Jesus is usually the central figure. In most gospel readings, Jesus is the protagonist, the one that we favor, the one we root for. Now, today's gospel reading, Jesus is not the protagonist. He's in the story, but he's not the one we're going to root for, someone else. So let's take a look at verses 1, 2, and 3 of the 19th chapter of Luke to try to figure out who this protagonist is, the one we want to favor here today. It starts off by saying, at that time, Jesus came to Jericho and intended to pass through the town. Now, a man there named Zacchaeus was the chief tax collector and also a wealthy man, was seeking to see who Jesus was. But he could not see him because of the crowd, for he was short in stature. Now, when you read that section, you say to yourself, oh, I want to root for Zacchaeus. He's trying to see Jesus, but what's the problem? Zacchaeus is short. The crowd is large. Jesus is far. And Zacchaeus wants to get near to Jesus so he can have Jesus do something for him. Now, at that point, Zacchaeus had two options. He could wallow in his shortness and say, well, that's the way it is. I'm short. Nothing I can do about it. Or he could try to find a way to make himself taller. And that's exactly what he did. He tried to find a way to make himself taller. Look what he does in verse 4 to make himself taller. So that's Zacchaeus, so Zacchaeus ran ahead and climbed the sycamore tree in order to see Jesus, who was about to pass that way. Now, when you look at that, that's great description. He went to a sycamore tree. That wasn't by accident. That was on purpose. It turns out to be that by the very nature. Sycamore trees have low branches that are thick and they are strong. Well, if you are short in stature, you want to climb a tree, the sycamore tree is the one you want to look for, because you can start climbing. The first branch usually occurs around foot 1 or 2 of the tree itself. Unlike a maple tree or an oak tree where the first row of branches occurs about the 6th and 7th foot of the tree. Well, if you're short in stature and you have no one to help you, give you a push up that tree, that's not the tree you want. So Zacchaeus sees the sycamore tree and he goes right to it. Without the help of anyone else, he starts to climb that tree. Now, Zacchaeus does this, and he's able to turn a bad, difficult situation into a positive, desired result. And see the result of him climbing that sycamore tree, verse 5 and 6, again, 19th chapter Luke. Now, when he reached that place, Jesus looked up and said, Zacchaeus. Now, Jesus, do you see it? Jesus looks up. Why does he look up? Because where's Zacchaeus? He's up in a tree, right? So he made himself taller. That's why Jesus looked up. It's there, this good description, but it's explaining exactly what went on in that story. Zacchaeus went up the tree. Jesus looked up and Zacchaeus, he recognized him. Come down quickly, for today I must stay at your house. And he came down quickly out of that tree and received him. We see Jesus with joy. You see, Zacchaeus realized what? God only helps those who help themselves. If you are dealing with a problem today, you're dealing with some kind of hurdle you need to tackle, some kind of dilemma that's right in front of your path, and you say to yourself, how can I solve this problem? If you pray to God and simply sit back and say, God, I'm going to see how you work this out, the problem is never going to get solved. Do you see what Zacchaeus did? He used the gift of initiation. He realized, I want to see Jesus. I didn't even make myself taller. He didn't sit back and cry in his sorrows. He didn't grow up and complain that he was short in stature. He said to himself, I know what I got to do. This is my goal. This is my aim. I'm going to climb that tree. That's really how prayer works. You know, it reminds me of, and I just love this story all the time. It reminds me of, and I understand they have a movie on this fellow, but it reminds me of Captain Sully, Sullenberger. Remember when he landed that plane in the Hudson River, January the 15th, 2009? He realized the plane was in trouble. He successfully lands that plane in the Hudson River, and not one passenger was lost. An incredible, miraculous feat. Now, after he does this, he's just on many news stations for months after that. And they're asking him all these questions about what went on that day. And the one channel I was watching, a week or two after he miraculously landed the plane in the Hudson River, they asked him this question. Captain Sully, when you realized that plane was in trouble, what did you do? Now, he gave an answer. When I heard that answer he gave, I said to myself, clearly this man must be a Christian, or this man reads the Bible, or this man understands the chapter of Luke, 19th chapter, or this man has read the 19th chapter of Luke verses 1 to 10, or this man understood and has read often the story of Zacchaeus, who took initiative in order to see Jesus. And this is what he said. This is beautiful. Check out, as I say it, follow the chronology in what he said in his answer. So they asked him the question, Captain Sully, when you realized that plane was going to fall to the earth and it was doomed, what did you do? And he said this. He said, I prayed, then I went to work. Isn't that incredible? I prayed, then I went to work. He didn't say this. I prayed, and then I snuggled in my little cockpit seat, and I sat back to see what God would do. If he'd land the plane okay. Because he realized that wouldn't work, right? The plane would crash. He said, I prayed, then I went to work. He probably prayed something like this. Heavenly Father, help me to touch each knob I got to touch with just the right amount of English. To do everything I need to do to land that plane safely. I'm going to do my part. But if you're helping me do my part, then together we'll land this plane safely. I prayed, then I went to work. That's how it works. If you've been dealing with a marital problem, every so often people tell me they're dealing with a marital problem, and then I'll ask the question, have you sought counsel from a marriage counselor? And often I'll get the answer, no. That's not a good answer if you want to solve the problem. If you simply say, I'm praying that my marriage is going to get rectified somehow, but myself and my wife, myself and my husband, we haven't done anything beyond prayer. We don't talk to each other. We don't look at each other. We haven't gone to the counselor. We've just prayed to God to help us out. It isn't going to work. Because God's saying, I need 2 people, 3 people, if it's a marital concern, to make this work. Him, her, and me. Because we're going to do it together. God doesn't work alone. If you're dealing with any solid problem or any type of issue, and you say, Heavenly Father, help me through this drug problem I have, or through my alcoholism that I have. Yet as you're praying that he helps you with your drugs or alcoholism, you stop at the state store and buy more. It isn't going to solve your problem. Well, God is going to say, the prayer is good, but I need you to be an active participant in the solving and the answering of your own prayer. It's the only way it works. That's what happened to Zacchaeus. Zacchaeus was short. This is an opportunity to see Jesus because he was only going to be walking by that way one time. So what did he do? Went up that sycamore tree. Because he said, I want to see Jesus. I'm going to do what it takes to see him. He took the initiative. You see, that's the challenge of prayer. Prayer works. But prayer to be truly effective in our lives, it needs to work in conjunction with you. God really doesn't work alone. And God does help those who help themselves. So if you have a problem, you're praying to God, what you need to do at the same time is say, God, the same thing Captain Sully said. I pray, then I go to work to try to deal and solve and answer the issue that I have. I guess it's true for all of us. You know, there are 2 ways to get to the top of an oak tree. You can climb it, or sit on an acorn and wait.